Excellent.
There are no rules but one. Drink Jägermeister at minus 18 degrees Celsius.
And that's very often, I mean, as humans, what we tend to do is simplify things sometimes too much. We tend to think it can be only one thing that a special adaptation is there for, whereas in fact it can have many purposes. The interesting thing, of course, is that Bob Bacher and Greg Paul and other scientists in the 1970s already said, well, you know, you can't just evolve flight feathers and start flying. They have to come from something else first. And so in the 1970s, dinosaur artists started putting feathers on their dinosaurs. And it made perfect sense that if you have feathers, then you can adapt them into something that you can use for flying. But if you don't have feathers, they don't just suddenly appear. They have to appear there for some other purpose first. And what Sinosauropteryx showed is that probably the downy-like feathers that it had were in fact there for insulation. And this made sense because the idea had been tossed around and argued about for a long time too as to whether or not dinosaurs were warm-blooded. And you would expect that if it was these were warm-blooded animals, at least the theropod dinosaurs, that the small ones would have to have some kind of insulation on their body. If dinosaurs are in fact related to birds, you would expect it to be feathers of some sort. And so the discovery of Sinosauropteryx in 1996 was something that had been predicted more than 20 years earlier. And now we know, of course, that in all probability, there's a sequence of changes that took place as dinosaurs evolved into birds, where the feathers were initially used for insulation. Subsequently, they were probably used for show. That is, if they wanted to attract the female, then they could be very colorful and showy and so on, the way they are in modern birds today. And we think that something like Caudipteryx is an animal that had feathers all over its body, but it had the long feathers behind the arms and at the end of the tail, not for flying because the arms were still too short and the feathers were too short, but they were longer feathers, and they may have been there as a way of displaying to potential females or scaring off a potential rival, who knows? But that seems to be the second stage. And then the third stage is once you've got something like that on your body, then of course it does give you the capability of gliding or flying. And if that's the case, then you start pushing evolutionary, make those feathers even longer so that you're better at gliding or flying. And so that's what we think the sequence may have been. Of course, it may have been slightly different. There might have been more than one purpose involved in this. Who knows? You know, we've come up with a lot of other novel ideas in the sequence, but unless you're actually back there, dinosaurs were probably trying out all of these different things anyway. So how do you sort out which were the ones that worked and which were the ones that didn't work?
We stay genuine, uncensored and unscripted, and we always will, as we have to order our usual. Share us and subscribe us, and stay tuned until the next Wednesday. Ikuzo!